Okay, so Kal Kadosh, good evening. First of all, so we wanted to say again, thank you very, very much to the Chayon family for their dear opening of their house. And B'ezrat Hashem, they should always have Kol Sason veKol Simcha, B'zer Chatan veKala here. So B'ezrat Hashem, first they're going to grow up, all the children, B'ezrat Hashem, they should be a lot of berachot and semachot, B'ezrat Hashem, in this house with a lot of B'sorot Tovot. We wanted to do this shiur. They told me that Lilu Nishmat Rav Chai Tayev, no? Rav Chai Tayev Lomet. We also wanted to do Refuah Shelema of the Chinuch Yitzchak and Esther Sarah, Hilni Yono Bechen Chana, Adel Miriam Michal Alia, and Hilni Yono Bechen Chana, and Ishai Yaakov Abraham ben Yitzchak, Eliyahu Chaim Hanavi ben Tita Esther, and Lilu Nishmat Yisod Asher ben Lydia Chaya Rachel, Lilu Nishmat Michal Phoebe bat Simcha, Lilu Nishmat Alexandra Esther bat Patricia Lunia. She'en Nishmatam Tzorach Amen. Okay, so we're going to start as follows. The Chazon Ish, he came and he gave a warning. Listen to this warning. This is the Chazon Ish, and he comes and he gives a warning, and he says as follows: if a carpenter makes a mistake, he ruins a piece of wood. He says if a glassmaker makes a mistake, so he ruined the glass. But if we are doing chinuch and we're trying to educate our children and we make a mistake, so then what happens? So chas v'shalom, we could ruin a nefesh. We could ruin our children. So therefore, we cannot afford to make mistakes. A piece of wood, if we made a mistake, we made a mistake. But chas v'shalom, with our children, there are precious things we cannot make. We cannot afford to make mistakes. So therefore, we have to be very, very careful that when we're learning this topic of chinuch, that we have to understand we can't afford to make mistakes. There's just too many things. We need to make sure that we're doing it properly. There's not a day that doesn't go by that we hear, whether it's going to be of divorces, whether it's going to be people going off the derech, whether it's going to be terrible things also as well. But Hashem has mercy on us, but He demands that we have to put our effort. So how do we put our effort? So we already mentioned once the story with the Rav Chaim Kanievsky, that a woman came to him and told him that she was going to daven for chinuch. And Rav Chaim Kanievsky went and he told her, how do you know that it's mutar to daven for chinuch? Remember we mentioned the story. And he said, why? So obviously a woman's going to say, you're going to tell me that it's prohibited to daven? Like, well, what does that mean? So he went and he said, you had to buy the Sefer al Techetu Yeladim, where it's going to be Rav Yaakov Zan. This is the master of chinuch nowadays. And basically what he went and she said is that once you're going to come and learn the book inside out and you learn the ins and outs of chinuch, that is chinuch. Now you don't need to daven anymore. Because once you learn how to do it, you don't have to daven. If you're going to go into the car, you don't have to daven beforehand that Hashem should teach you how to drive the car. Hopefully, right, you learned how to drive the car once upon a time, and hopefully you remember, and hopefully you're not DOI, because if not, then we're in trouble. But you don't need to daven for that. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to learn about chinuch. We have to learn about how to educate our children. And once we learn how to educate our children, now we're going to come and we're going to be able to educate them properly. So one thing that we do also have to understand is that many times we come and we ask questions that there's no real answers. The reason why is because we'll get anonymous questions, right? Rabbi, what do I do if my son doesn't want to go take a shower, right? Or he doesn't want to do his homework. So many times we don't realize that we're forgetting the age of the child, we're forgetting what happened that day, and many other factors that actually change everything to do with the chinuch. So you cannot come and just ask a blatant question and expect that it's a book, right? And this we already spoke about in the past. It's not just that you have a book and this is a rule book. There's no rule book. Every child is different. Every child at different times is different. And therefore, what we just have to learn is how we're supposed to act, right, according to the Torah. But it's not going to help by just thinking that as if to say that I'm going to open up a rule book and say, 1 second, my child has a problem at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what I'm supposed to do. And if it's at 4 o'clock, this is what I'm supposed to do. We have to learn how to do chinuch. So now what we're going to say is as follows. Nowadays, we have a major, major problem. Why do we have a major problem? The major problem that we have nowadays is that there's 3 different categories out of thousands of cases, whether it's going to be Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, right, Hasidim, Litaim, everything. There's going to be 3 different categories, which is going to shape everything what we're going to speak about tonight, which goes as follows. Category number 1, we've got a lot of children that they go off the derech, which means they leave the path of Torah mitzvot. So that's going to be group number 1. Group number 2, which is basically that there are going to be children which either you're already going to call them that they're institutionalized because of a mental illness, meaning that they're not 100% there anymore, or they need to be doing that. And this is actually a very dangerous category because there's so many of them that the Gdolim prohibit to say how many are in this category, right? And nowadays, you're right, you want to call it ADHD and ADD and all these other hundreds of names, but really, be'emet, it's not going to be that, right? The majority of the cases, and this is the bigger problem, is the silent majority, is that we are outwardly frum and inwardly we're empty. What does that mean? You've got the majority of cases nowadays, right? And this is the worst out of all of them is that we have a lot of teenagers and children that if you look at them, yeah, they're religious, they're in a religious school, you write them, they have everything perfect, but they're empty. There's nothing inside. Now the question is, why is that? So there was once a boy that he went and he called up this famous rabbi of Chinuch, and he told him, Rabbi, I need a heter. I need a heter. He says, okay. You need a heter? What do you need a heter for? You need a permission for what? He says, you should know, I can't give you heterim. So he says, why not? You're the only one that can give it. He says, no, but even if I'm going to be a rabbi, I'm not a Rav Matira Salim. I'm not just somebody that comes. He goes, Rabbi, let me tell you the problem. He says, I'm in a top yeshiva. There's a top yeshiva in Eretz Israel. And what happened is that we're all sitting down. They were probably even drinking and everything. And they're all speaking. And all of a sudden he comes and he says, we have a problem. We cannot make the bracha of Shelo Asani Goy. So the rabbi says, why not? He says, because we don't feel like it. Right? What does that mean, we don't feel like it? If you really think about it, it's the opposite. I would have been happy if I was a goy. Why? Think of my life. Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. I don't have all the headaches. I don't have all the problems. All I have to do is do Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. The majority are easy. One of them might be a little bit difficult about being, honest without stealing and without doing those things. So, okay, I'm going to be honest with business. But other than that, it's very, very simple. Now, if the only problem was with me, so I would have kept quiet. The problem is, right, out of 23 boys, there were basically another 19 that had the exact same view. One of them, he was already weird, so forget about him. And another one was in Shidduchim. So since he was Shidduchim, he was probably faking it. So he's going to say, no, for sure I can make the bracha of Shelo Asani Goy. But he says, but now we have a dilemma. And the dilemma is, what do we do when you have that 19 boys nowadays are going to come, they're in a top yeshiva, and they don't even realize why they're happy to be Jewish. Why is that a good thing? Right? To be religious. Why is that a good thing? Which means that we're obviously missing something, and there's a problem which is inside that we have to actually try to fix. Which means that we are actually coming and we are raising a generation of that they're believing that the certain type of religiousness, whether it's what we call frumkeit or Yiddishkeit, the way to be Jewish, is something good, but really be'emet, they're empty. They don't feel anything. You come and you speak to them and they don't really feel the connection with Hashem, that they want to be religious, that they want to be Jewish, and the proof, they didn't even want to make the bracha of Shelo Asani Goy, that he didn't make me into a non-Jew. So the question that we ask ourselves is, so how do we fix this problem then? Because obviously there has to be something that we're missing. So after doing a lot of research, he comes and he says, we're going to bring down the yesod, the fundamental problem, and we're going to explain. He says 70% of the problem is an emotional undernourishment of love. Meaning that children nowadays do not feel loved. That's a problem of 70%, which means 70% of children do not feel loved. I already told you, I tested this, and it's actually heartbreaking, but you could actually test it yourselves, right? Go to your child and ask them, or have somebody else ask them, right? Does your mommy love you? Does your daddy love you? And just listen to the response, and you'll be amazed. Because if they're going to start thinking, you should start saying to yourself, 1 second, why are you thinking so much? Right? Obviously I love them. So why are they start thinking to themselves, do they really love me? Do they not love me? Or all of a sudden you come and you tell them, don't do something, you hate me. Ribono shel olam. What, you just told them not to do one thing. What does that outburst come, you hate me? That means we're doing something wrong. There's something wrong that's going around that we come and we say, you hate me. But what did I say already? Did I say I hate you? No. Did I torture you? No. So then what is this that you're saying? That you hate me, that I hate you. So that means obviously, right, we're missing the boat. There's 70% of what's called that they feel, right, a problem that they don't feel loved. Yes. Yes. So the next 30%, 1 second, and then we're going to explain it, 1 second, right, step by step. The first 70% we said was malnutrition, or we're going to say bad nourishment of love, that they don't feel love. The next 30% is what we spoke about, if you remember, in the first shiur, which was the difference between haf'ala and chinuch, which is basically we are going to be haf'ala. Haf'ala means that I'm coming and I'm going to cause them to do something, and chinuch, education. What does that mean now? Education and haf'ala. What does that mean? Right? So we're going to start, right? If you remember, and then we'll explain to do with the 70% of the love. But when we're talking about hafala and the chinuch, we explained as follows. If I come right now and I get my child to do something, right? Which means I'm going to come and let's say it was, for example, they had to do their homework, right? And they did their homework. Did I win or did I lose? And they did their homework. So what do we always say? We said that what? Did I win or do I lose? So we thought that we won. Why?
You do it good or correctly.
No, that's for sure you're going to lose. 1 minute. But why? Because if you remember, we said that was only hafala. Hafala is, I'm getting you to do an action, even though in the future, you'll never want to do it again. So for example, right now I got you to do it. But 20 years down the line, do you want to do your homework? Obviously not. That's not chinuch. Chinuch is education. You remember chinuch, we said, comes from the word of Chanukah, which means that you're inaugurating something, you're starting something. So when the Gaon Mivina comes and he says on the pasuk, Chanoch lanar al pi darko, ki gam ki yaskil lo yasur mimenu, which means you have to educate your child that also when he gets older, he will not abandon that which he's doing. It means that you have to do something now, that not that he's doing it now. I want that in 20 years' time, he's still going to be doing it. And in 50 years' time, he's still going to be doing it. That's called chinuch. So right now, if I'm going to come and I'm going to have that, for example, he's going to come and he's going to, let's say I got him to say tefillah. So beautiful, he said tefillah, but I've got a problem. You know what the problem though is? Right now, I forced him to say tefillah, I did it, and I won, but I didn't win. Because now in 20 years down the line, he doesn't want to say tefillah, so I lost.
Going through the motions.
Exactly. I went through the motions, but I lost. So now, the book of Al Techetu B'Yeled, which is the book in Hebrew of Rav Yaakov's and explaining this, was 2 different volumes. One volume was Hafala, and one volume was of Chinuch. Meaning, every single time that you're going to do an action with your child, you have to decide, what am I doing now? Am I just causing them to do an action? Or am I educating them that in the future, they're actually going to do this? So therefore, it's very, very important for us always to remember this. Why? Because says Rav Dessler, he says it's like a kfitz. I don't know if you ever saw Jack in the Box. Yeah? Jack, no? I'm going to come and I'm going to pull down the spring. The more you pull it down, what happens? It pops up in the opposite direction. The exact same is with a child. I'm going to come and I'm going to force them to say tefillah. The more that you force them to say tefillah, the more they're going to hate to say tefillah. Why? I didn't educate them. I forced them to do it. I won right now. They said tefillah, but they hate it. They don't like it. So therefore, what we have to learn is there's a difference between getting somebody to do an action and making them love it. Chinuch is making them love the action, making them love to do what they're doing. If right now you're going to ask them, do you love what you're doing? That's called chinuch. If right now you're going to ask them and they don't love what they're doing, that's not chinuch. So if you have a Rabbi, right, a rabbi in the school, and he's got all the children like this, like mamash, like soldiers, what's going to happen is you're going to have to ask the children. Because if they love what they're doing, so then, and he's able to do that, that's perfect. That's chinuch. But if they're just soldiers because they're under him and he's going to give them the trecha, so tomorrow you know very, very well that what's going to happen is they're going to be completely the other direction. And we did see this, by the way, with certain times of even the older generation that you had, that they came from very holy people, right? I had somebody, I once asked them, right? He came, the mother, tzadeket, like mamash, the grandparents, the grandfather was a big rabbi, right? And he told me, you know what happened? They made me hate it because they forced it so much that I hate it. So that's not called chinuch. At the time, they're going to make me do it. That's called hafala. They got me to do it. They made me do an action. But if I hate it, I got nowhere. So therefore, again, one more time, 70% of the children nowadays, the reason why they feel empty is because there's a lack of love. And then another 30% is not going to be because of lack of love, is because they made a mistake between what's called afala and chinuch. So now what we have to find out is, okay, fine. So then what are we supposed to do then? How do we fix this?
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
So to do with the questions now, it comes out like this. So what they said was, we have a way how to fix it. How do we fix our problem? We have a problem. The problem is 70% they don't feel love. And 30%, they don't feel that, again, we're causing them to do something and they don't actually love it. So therefore it's a problem. So he says, so what we're supposed to do is as follows. 70% of the time, we're supposed to just show them love. That's what we have to do with our children. 70% of our time that we have with our children, just show them love. The other 30%, we have to praise that which they're doing good. Find things to praise. Now it comes out that if you have 70 and 30, how much is that? 100%. So if you have 100%, you have no time to punish or to do anything else. Meaning that if somebody's going to ask you, when do I punish my children? I don't have time for that. I have to show them 70% of the time love. And I'm going to come and I'm going to show them, all the Moroccans are leaving the table, right? And then you have to show them the other 30%. You have to praise them. So therefore, there's no time for anything else other than loving them and other than praising them. So now, what we have to do is as follows, yeah? We make a mistake nowadays, right, that we say as follows. Why is it that we're going to speak about again today a lot about the discipline? Because again, obviously we're going to have to speak about whether it's going to be prizes, like rewards. We're going to have to speak about also when are you supposed to give them criticism and other things, or punishments that we didn't even get to, right? We're still at the beginning. But why? Because we always have to be doing a lot of reviews, because it does not come overnight. Meaning, don't think that overnight you're going to come and change something completely different. But we have to continue doing it again and again and again until finally, with so much revision, it's going to change us and then it's going to change them. So now we're going to speak about, which was the same what we spoke about at the beginning of the shiur, a new phenomenon. There was a Rosh Yeshiva that he was in denial. Why was he in denial? Because there was a Rebbe in the shiur right under the Rosh Yeshiva, that he's in the Bet HaMidrash. Many times the Rosh Yeshiva comes just to give the shiur. And what happened comes the Rebbe in the shiur and he calls up the rabbi and he says, listen, I've got a problem. The Rosh Yeshiva is in denial. The majority of the boys are sleeping until 2 p.m., which means that they're not even coming anymore and they're just sleeping all day and they're not really doing anything. The other problem also, he says, is that usually after a few years, they stay afterwards in the yeshiva to continue learning. And here, they're not continuing to learn. So the question that we ask ourselves is, how do we fix it? No, that's already after Shana Gimel. They stay again for kibbutz. And even that, they're not going to do it. Right? For girls, usually it's Shana Bet. Right? But for boys, usually they have to stay 3 years and then they continue after that. Here he says, nobody's staying behind anymore. So therefore the question is, why? So in order to understand this, right, we're going to mention something which I think is very, very important. You remember we spoke about in the first shiur the Pavlov association.
Yeah.
What was the Pavlov association? You remember this the story, the case? What was it?
The bell?
No, with the bell and what? And the bears.
Dog.
No, the bears. What was the bears? Everyone remember with the bears?
Dancing.
And the music? The dancing.
The dancing.
The dancing of the bears. Everyone remembers the dancing of the bear? Yeah?
You put them on the hot stones.
Very good. They put them, if you remember, I'll do it, just mention it very, very clearly. This is actually from a psychologist, even though we're going to mention it here now, we're going to understand. What happened was that they learned by psychology, what happens is that they took these bears when they're very, very young, right? Somebody just told me that the bear actually just tackled his gatekeeper, right? So you actually, in Chinuch. Okay, you have it. So it's actually in Yana Diyoma. We're talking about it today. So what happened was, a bear is a bear. What happened was that the bear comes, and they used to capture the bears when they're very, very young. And what they would do is that they would they would shave off the feet and they would put hot coals, burning hot coals, and then they would start the music. And what happens is that when the bears hear the music, right, they would start dancing, but they're not really dancing. They're jumping up and down from pain because they're suffering so much on being on hot coals with their feet have been cut off in order that it actually hurts them and it's burning them. So they're jumping. Now what happens is, later on, all you have to do is just put on the music and they're going to start dancing. Now, they're not dancing to the music. It's just that in their brain, it associates to them, right? They're, what's going on in their brain is, 1 second, as if to say, I'm recalling something that's happening. Now, the truth is, you should know, this happens many times, even with children, without realizing it. For example, there was a girl, right, that all of a sudden, she started hearing drilling, and she started screaming out of nowhere, and the father didn't know what was going on. And then he realized that happened is that she went to the dentist a few days before, and they had to start drilling in her teeth, and it hurts so much that now if she's just going to hear the association, she's going to just hear drilling, what does she think in her mind? I have pain, it hurts my teeth. Now, her teeth are not hurting. There's nobody touching her teeth, but the brain associates one thing with another thing. It's a pleasure, right? And that's what's making the association is actually coming, and it's going to have a big effect. So what happens is as follows, right? The Torah, what was the difference between in the past generations and nowadays? So the difference in the past generations is that Torah was our life. Where did you used to learn? In your house, right? The Rabbi, that was like your father, the mother was the mashkiach. It was something incredible. Everything, what is a cheder? A cheder is cheder, it's in the room, right? That's what it is, the room, it's in a room. That's where they used to learn. Nowadays, what we have is a school. Remember, schools are artificial. It comes from the Yevanim, it comes from the Greeks, because they wanted to come and polarize to make everyone learn the exact same amount of information, just feed it to them, spit it out, same test, same everything. No child is the same. How do you want that every single child is going to have the exact same? There's no such thing as the same child. So I'm going to give you a test. It's all the same for every child. That's incorrect. Every child should have a test according to them, because each person is different. And if each person is different, I can't give the same test, right, to every single human being. It doesn't make sense. But again, that's what's called a school. So we spoke about, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that what we're just supposed to do is survive school. But school, be'emet, is not real chinuch. Now what happens is as follows. This once happened with Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. There was a little boy. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was the Rosh Yeshiva of Kol Torah, right, in Beit Vegan. And what happened was that there was a boy that was always daydreaming that he wanted to ask the Gadol Hador, he wanted to ask the big rabbi a question. So every single day he used to watch how the Rosh Yeshiva used to come out and go from one place to another. And he was always with a car, he always had a whole bunch of bachurim beside him. Until finally one day he's fantasizing, right? He's thinking about his dream. And all of a sudden he blurted it out that he wanted to ask him a question. And all of a sudden he becomes white because he realized that it actually came out of his mouth. And all of a sudden the boys split, right? They do Kriyat Yam Suf. And Rosh Shlomo Zalman is listening to him and he says, my son, what do you want to ask? And all of a sudden he's like this, he doesn't know what to ask. Now his nickname in class was actually question mark, right? Why? Because he was always asking questions, right? But he was going to ask him a question just to save his face, but he realized that his Rebbe actually slapped him for asking the question. But what was the question? The question is he asks the Rosh Yeshiva, he asks the Gadol Hador, why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be Mizakei Yisrael, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbi Chanya Melech HaShomer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lezakot et Yisrael, and therefore is Yiba Lahem Torah Mitzvot. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to make my life easier, you know what he has to do? Give me much less mitzvot. Why? Make my life easy. Why are you giving me so many mitzvot? Right? You're making my life so difficult. So this is a boy, an 8-year-old boy, asking the Rosh Shiva this question. Yeah? So now, he didn't know what to do, the boy, because he asked the question, and he's waiting, maybe the Bachurim are going to come and pounce on him, and he doesn't know what to do. And finally, what happens is that the Rosh Shiva comes, and he tells him like this. The Rosh Shiva comes, and he says, right? He comes and he says like this. He says, wow, that's an incredible question. But I'm going to explain it to you. And he says like this. He says, did you ever see, right? How do you come and how do you get dressed? So he says, what does that mean? He says, okay, how do you put on your shoes? So usually even a small little child, they'll know. How do you put on your shoes?
The right one first.
Right one first. Then the left.
Then you tie.
Tie the left.
then the right.
And then they tie right. Okay, very good. So now he comes and he says, and he asks him like this. He says, did you ever see a goy put on their shoes? How do they put on their shoes?
Like Zidane, he do the same thing.
He does the same thing. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So the little boy, 8 years old, he says, listen, I've never seen a goy put on shoes. I don't know. He says, okay, fine. Forget about a goy. Did you ever see somebody that's not shomer Torah mitzvot? Did you ever see them put on the shoes? He says, no. He says, do they put them on simultaneously? So he says, I don't think so. Right? I'm saying you're going to put on both shoes together. Obviously, it's one and another. So he comes and he says like this. Listen to this. So he comes and he says, you're doing it anyway. So therefore, what you have to understand is HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be mizakeh otcha. He wants to give you train loads of zechuyot. What does that mean? When you come to Gan Eden, you're going to turn around and you're going to see that there's going to be train loads full of mitzvot. Now, what mitzvah? I put on my shoes properly. Now, one second, but anyways, you were putting on your shoes. So what happens is that anyways you were going to do something, what you're doing now is every single time that you do it, you're doing a mitzvah. So he purposely gave you that on any idea that you're doing, you're going to do. So if you did it right now every single day, and you did it 7 times, let's say you put it on even twice a day, and then how many times you're going to do it in a week, and how many times in a month, and in a year, and 20 years down, look how many thousands of mitzvot that you're doing every single time. And then imagine what's going on. So the Rosh Shiva came and he told him, that's what it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mizakeh, right? He wanted to be mizakeh to Yisrael. He wanted to give us zechuyot, not to make our lives more difficult. Anyways, we're already doing it. But if you're already doing it, I'm going to give you a mitzvah to do it. And now that you're doing a mitzvah, you're going to get a reward. And that reward is immense that you can't even understand. So now all of a sudden, it's a different outlook. Because now the way that you're showing them is that it's not actually difficult to do it. It's actually be'emet, it's something incredible. I want to do it. So what happens is as follows. What happened was 2 months later, with this boy coming, what happened was that the Rabbi came and he gave them sweaters. And then the Rabbi came and he taught them, by the way, you should know, right? How do you put on the sweater? You put on the head of the sweater, and then you're going to put on your right arm, and then your left arm. So this boy, this 8-year-old boy, again, remembering what the Rosh Shiva just told him, Rosh Zamin Orba, the Gadol Ador, he comes and he asks the Rabbi, is that only for the sweater? He said, no, it's for everything. Even for your socks, you're going to put on the right sock first, and then the left sock first. Right? Shower also. The right part of the body, and then the left part of the body. You always start with the head, because the head is the Rosh HaEvarim, the king, and that's why the first thing also is the kippah, right? It always comes first. Why? Because that's the most important. Then you continue going. You're always doing the right, and then you're doing the left. So then all of a sudden this boy, an 8-year-old boy, took out a piece of paper, and he started doing the math. On how many times, how many mitzvot am I going to get for my pants? I'm putting the right leg first. For my shirt, right? The right hand first. For even this, he started coming. He ran into his house singing, Afilu agarbaim, even for my socks. Look how much. What does that mean? Thousands and thousands and thousands of mitzvot that we're getting, that anyway, we were doing it anyway. And therefore, what happens? What happens is that it's a completely different story here, right? Why? Because all of a sudden now, everything changed. So now, what happens is as follows.
The same kid that did not want to do the mitzvot, once he makes the account, he wants to do the mitzvot?
Yes, but we're going to go one step further, right? And what does that mean? And this is where we're getting to, because now you just asked the question, okay, so how do we go back to the boys, and nowadays, they feel empty, right? At the end of the day, we just explain how beautiful it is, how many mitzvot that we're getting and everything. But now let's try to understand. There's a natural rebellion. And we spoke about this, I think it was last week. There's a natural sense to rebel. That comes, right? The Rochaim Vital comes and he says that we know that every single human being is made out of 4 different aspects, whether it's going to be the fire, right? The afar, which is the dust, the dirt, right? Whether it's going to be the wind and the water. Every single one. By the way, you should know accordingly, that's what makes a difference. So for example, shadim, they're made much more of wind and not of afar, not of dirt. So therefore they're able to fly, right? They're much more quick, right? Or the same thing with malachim. All these things, meaning according to the way that the world was created, according to the elements of what you're made out of, that's what changes us. So therefore, a human being is made also out of afar, which is dirt. That's what comes the laziness. Why are we lazy? Because we're like the dirt. The dirt is stuck on the ground, doesn't want to move. So therefore, we're lazy. But there's esh. What is the esh? The fire. The fire is we want to rebel, right? The power of the fire is to rebel. So now what happens is as follows, right? Every single child, right, has a certain element of resistance, and he wants to rebel, and laziness. Now, if we're going to tie the mitzvot to pressure, or to identity, or force, what happens is the rebellion never goes away. We still want to rebel. The only thing is we quashed it for now. Why do we quash it for now? Because at the end of the day, I'm being forced to do it. But really, Be'emet, I don't want to do it. So I still want to rebel. That rebellion is there. It's hidden. And it's just waiting to come out. So what happens is that when, just like we said the story last time, you remember we said, there's a sense of a change in nature. A little baby, right, or let's say a 2-year-old, right? He's coming with the little tiny the little tiny toy, let's say the bike or whatever it is. He bangs into the wall, right? He bangs in once, he starts saying beep, 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 he wants to go through. Bangs another time, 3 times, what does he realize? He can't go through a wall. So what are you going to do? You go around, right? Does he feel a resistance now that there's a wall? No. Now, obviously, if you're going to come and you're going to carve a hole into the wall, you're going to cause a big problem to the child. Because that means the child will realize, I have no walls, I have no boundaries, I can do whatever I want in life. And then later on in life, he's going to mess himself up. But if it's natural, what happens is he has to stop. So now what happens is like as follows. What we're supposed to do is how are we bringing up our children? And this is where we're making a mistake. We come and we tell our child, listen, right, I want you to daven. And I want you to get up early. Why? I want you to pray. So now, why do you want to pray? Right? No, because I want you to pray today. You're religious, you're Jewish, you go to an Orthodox school, you have to do this. What I just did is I put a negative association, I go back to the bears, a negative association of what's called, right, the praying with getting up early. I'm suffering. I don't want to get up early. I want to stay in bed. You're causing me to suffer. I have to wake up because my father's forcing me to wake up in order to pray. That's called a negative association. Which means
you never say that to the kids.
Exactly. You're never supposed to say that to the kids. Never supposed to say that to the kids. Which means that you're not supposed to come and tell them because of religion, you have to do something. So now what happens is that we're growing up a generation, right, where it's actually something incredible because without even realizing it, right, we are changing the mental state of how a human being works. Right? So I'll explain and then we'll take questions, right? 1 second. So he says, like, what does that mean? I'll give you an example, right? He comes and he says like this, the milkman. Once upon a time, there was a milkman. Obviously here, everyone's too young to remember that. But in the olden days, there was a milkman. The milkman used to come and wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, used to bring the milk. At the beginning, he used to bring the milk, and every single house, he would have to go door by door at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, giving them the milk and taking the empties. Later on, it used to become glass. Why? They upgraded. So now they're taking glass bottles, glass jugs, and they're giving it to them, right? Did you ever think about whatever stopped him? He never had a musar sefer, right? He didn't have a mashkiach, he didn't have incentives, but that was life, that was reality. And the same thing happens with a lot of the jobs, meaning you would come and you would take, right, of the old generation, and the old generation, they had to work sometimes 3 jobs in order to come and to make their parnasah. Was there ever a problem with that? Never. But now why? And the reason why is because it became a reality. It was not tied to religion or wasn't tied to doing anything else. And if it's not tied to anything else, and this is the way that it is reality, It's like you're taking the child and you're putting the wall, he bumps into it twice and then he realizes it, I have to update my brain. This is a reality. This is the way that we live. It's not something that I feel that once we realize that and we channel that, all of a sudden now, I don't feel to rebel. There's nothing to rebel, or I don't feel laziness. I have to do it. So the way to do it is that this is the way that this rabbi went and he said, his father came and he told him, listen, right? Very, very simple. I have a Kabbalah, we have a Masorah, a tradition from my grandmother, that our family, we are winners and not losers. And therefore we wake up early and we work. We have very strong work ethics. So tomorrow morning, we're going to wake up to Shachrit. So he comes and he says, yeah, but Papa, why? Why do I have to come to Shachrit? He says, well, you're not going to get up late. You're not a loser, you're a winner. So we have to wake up early. So he says, okay, and what if I don't want to get up? He says, no, if you don't want to get up, you don't understand. I'm going to turn over your bed, turn over the room, turn over the entire house, but you're getting up. You're not a loser, you're a winner. The child comes and says, 1 second, I'm a winner. I'm something important. It has nothing to do with religion. Because if you right now came and you tied it to religion, what happens is that I hate religion. Why do I hate religion? I don't want to get up early. I want to sleep. Right? And then what are you telling me? You're forcing me down my throat that no, that I want you to wake up early for religion. I don't want religion. So therefore, right now you're going to force me. You're going to win. But in 10 years down the line, I don't want religion. And therefore, when you're going to ask me, do I want to make a bracha, shelo asani goy? My answer is, I don't want to make a bracha. I prefer to be a goy. Why do I prefer to be a goy, chas shalom? Because I cannot. The religion is too enforcing. I can't breathe. But that's not the way religion is supposed to be. If religion was made that it's actually becoming,
So
instead of that.
So you're saying you have to drive the religion?
Okay. Meaning that the way that we're supposed to do it is that you are a winner. Now what happens is he woke up for Shachrit and he came to Shachrit. Now you have to come and you have to play the Rosh Hashanah Orbach. And you have to say, wow, did you realize we were driving to Shachrit? Did you realize how many people are up? I just drove my daughter this morning. It was, I think, at 5:30 in the morning. We saw so many cars on the highway. Now you come and you say to yourself, you come and you tell your child, wow, look how many goyim are up and look, we're up. You know what the difference is? We're up anyway. And they're also up. But now we have a mitzvah. We speak to Hashem. Now what I just did is, he's being mizaket Israel. He's giving us thousands of extra mitzvot. Meaning the reason why we're waking up is not because of religion. We're waking up early because that is reality. And the reality is that we're not losers, we're winners. We're not people that we're just going to sleep all day. Because what usually happens to those people is what? They don't get anywhere in life. The people that just sleep all day. You have to be a worker. You have to work ethic. So perfect. But now that you're already up, and it's a reality, now what's happening? All of a sudden now I shift it. Baruch Hashem, look what's going on. Did you just realize that you're up anyway? But now Hashem came and was Mizaket Israel. You have so many thousands of zechuyot that you're able to speak to Hashem, and now you become a millionaire. But you're not getting up because of Hashem. You're getting up because that's reality to get up. It's like knocking into the wall. You have to get up. But now that you're already up, look how many thousands of mitzvot you're getting. Now by doing that, I don't have the negative association with the Torah. I don't have the negative association for Torah. So somebody has to learn. So for example, secular studies, that's much easier. So you're able to do that. So if somebody, for the school. So therefore, if you want to come and you want to learn for school, so the reason why you have to learn is because I want you to be smart. Nothing to do with I want you to know the entire Torah Kula. I want you to be smart. I want you to be an educated person. I want you to know and to be a knowledgeable person. A person that's not one of the bums that are over there that don't know nothing from their lives. So therefore, I want you to learn. But now that you're already learning, you should know you're learning and they're also learning. But there's one difference. When you're already learning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ratzah Lezakot et Yisrael. Look how many millions of mitzvot you get when you're going to learn His Torah, which is going to make you even smarter than them. That in South Korea, they understand that you have to learn Gemara in order to become smart. Now I come and I say, wow, look what you are doing. You've thousands of millions of mitzvot that anyway you're doing. You're not doing it because of religion, but if you were doing it because of religion, you have negative association. We don't want negative association because then you hate it. We don't want that. Now, according to this, now we're going to understand what's going on with everything to do with waking up, davening, tzniut, right? Somebody once said it. They said, you go into a shiur, you mention the word tzniut, half the women come, turn off the bell. You ask yourselves, but 1 second, why? What did I only say? We have Torah. When we say Torah, Not everyone turns off the bell. Some people do. Right? Why? Because they hated it so much of learning Torah that it was forced down their throat that they hate it. So then they turn off. Don't talk to me about that. Talk to me about anything else, but not that. So why is it that way? And again, because once we came and we attached it, that instead of being a noble person, instead of being a person that of dignity, right? A queen, a bat melech, all of a sudden now we attach it to religion. If you attach it to religion, you hate it. If you attach it to reality, it's a reality. This is what you need to do, and everyone else is doing it. But now just realize that 1 second, you're a millionaire. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ratzah lezakot et Israel. He gave us so many thousands of mitzvot that now you're doing it anyway, but now you don't have this rebellion inside of you or laziness inside of you that you want it to come and you want to shout forth. Up here. So now what happens is as follows, right? What did we speak about before? We spoke about a case, right? Are you guys listening? Écoute-moi. Okay. So he says like this. So he says as follows, yeah? What happens is that, how do we start the shiur? That there's a problem that the children do not feel loved. What does that mean exactly, that the children do not feel loved? So there was once a bachur that he came to the rabbi and he told him as follows: Rabbi, I'm one of the best bachurim in my yeshiva. I'm at the age of shidduchim, but I don't feel that I'm prepared to get married. He says, why? He says, I feel that I might be even a little bit psychotic. So he says, okay, what's the problem?
You told him it was dangerous.
So he told him, which one?
You told him it was dangerous.
Hey, I told him it was dangerous.
They are dangerous.
So what happened is he said, okay, fine. So what happened? He says, what happens is that out of nowhere, all of a sudden I'll start crying, and I can't even hold back the tears, and I'm embarrassed, but I just don't know why. So the rabbi tells him, when does it happen? He says, no, it happens in certain occasions. So he says, is there any connection, any common denominator? He says, no, there's nothing in common. So he says, can you please give me some of the cases? I want to see like the trigger, what exactly is causing it. So what happens is that he comes and he starts and he says, okay, fine. So the first one, because he gives him 3 different cases. Case number 1, a father's putting his arm around his son in the shul and he's leaving over to show him something in the Chumash. Case number 2, young children are playing naturally with affection in the environment of love, natural, healthy love. The third one is the mother comes and she gives a kiss to her daughter in the middle of the street. So all of a sudden, the rabbi comes and he says, okay, I got the common denominator. So he says, what are you talking about? There's no common denominator. He says, of course, you don't realize that there's one problem here. You're missing a lot of love. So he says, what? You're crazy. What are you talking about? There's nothing to do with anything. There was so many different facts. What are you only getting on this? He comes and he says, okay, fine, listen, I'm going to accept your musar, but whenever you want, the door's always open. 18 months later, he comes and he knocks on the door. He says, yes, what happened? So he says, Rabbi, I wanted to apologize. He says, why? He says, because you ruined our Pesach. So he says, okay, so what does that mean? He says, very, very simple. He says, my father, he's a very, very big Rosh Yeshiva in Bnei Brak, and we have for a Seder 100 people in a big hall, right? The entire extended family, everybody there, 100 people. They're all there. He says, okay. So he says, what happened is that this year, what happens is always separate seating. And this year I decided I wanted to sit beside my mother. So, okay, he sits beside the mother. He's obviously, with the women over there. And the father's, but he just lets it go. They have to start the seder, fine, they go, and that's it. He's obviously not comfortable, but fine. There was a minhag in their family that they never steal the fikomen. Why? The father felt it's wrong. There's a whole question about it. Okay, by Morocco, is there? But there was no such thing. You're going to steal you're stealing it. What type of education is that? So they would never steal it. But all of a sudden, it's almost coming to Chatzot, and all of a sudden the father's looking for the fikomen, and he can't find it. So all of a sudden he says, anybody knows where the fikomen is? The boy comes and he picks up. Again, this is a boy already at shidduch age, right? And he comes and he says, yes, I took it. I stole it. So the father now is already, he was Ashkenazi, but he was getting, yeah. So he comes and he starts saying, okay, fine. So you give it back to me. He says, no, I'm not going to give it back to you unless you're going to give me the present or what I want. So he says, what are you talking about? According to Halakha, you know very, very well that I could just take another matzah and just eat it. So you're not going to blackmail me now and start taking the thing. So he says, listen, if you want to go the b'diavad route, so fine, go ahead, do that. But if you want the lechatchila, so then you're going to do it. So the father again, he says, you know what? Fine. What do you want? You want a new bike, walkie-talkies? What do you want already? What do you want? So he comes and he says like this. He stood up, he lowers his eyes, and he comes and he says, I want that you should come and give me a kiss, which is the first time that you've done. Now, he comes and he says that he picks up his eyes, but he was embarrassed to say this in front of everybody, but he realizes that his mother, that's the most noble of everything, she's crying like a baby. He looks at the other side, his brother, his older brother, which is a very chashuv, a rabbi in a yeshiva. He's fixing his glasses and he's got a napkin in his face that he can't. His older sister, that she took care of a lot of the chinuch of his as well, she's under the table. So he comes and he says, so now I wanted to come back to you, and you were 100% right. What does that mean? That means that you have a case over here where the children do not feel loved. Now the question is, why? What exactly is going on that the children nowadays do not feel love? And the reason why is as follows, right? It once happened with another rabbi that he's walking down with his son. He's thinking about the mortgage payments. And all of a sudden the son comes and he tells him, by the way, you hate when I do Shlai Mikra. Or you hate when I'm learning Chumash. So the father's like, what are you talking about? I go many years back. I'm the happiest person in the world that you're doing. What are you talking about? No, you hate it because every time I do it, you're not happy. What does that mean? And this is to answer, I think it was Steve, I don't remember who it was that they said it. The child, right? What happens is the child only reads what their parents' face says to them. They don't know anything else. Which means they don't realize that you're thinking now about whether it's going to be your mortgage payments and all the debts that you have and all the problems you have at work and any other problem that you have. They only see one thing. They look at you and they say, 1 second, he's not happy with me. He hates me. There's something wrong. When a child is born, once upon a time, with the Chavetz Chaim's time and everything, and all of the Gdolim's time, they naturally had love for the children, and the children naturally felt love. They felt loved. Nowadays, children do not feel loved. They're born and they start screaming, right? Why? You hear all the subways and all the hammerings and all these things. They feel that they're being attacked, right? The grandmother comes in and she says, look how cute. He feels he's being attacked. So they actually checked it with fMRIs. fMRIs is like an MRI on the body, but it's in the brain. And they checked with fMRIs that they actually checked what's going on in the brain of a little tiny baby. What happens is they want to start running away. They want to start like as if they want to escape because they don't feel safe. They don't feel love. The only way to feel loved is only when they're going to be hugged and kissed and everything else. That's why it's so important to hug and to kiss your children. Now you're going to say, yeah, but for sure I love my children. Nothing ever changed. It's not enough just to say that you love them. You have to show them the love and show them what?
If they don't want,
every child they want it. No. Every child they want it, even though they'll tell you maybe they don't want it, but they for sure, right? They do want it. The only thing is you have to see it in how it is. So okay, fine. 1 second. So he comes and he says like this. So now what we have to do is like this. When they feel like this, what are they saying? They feel hostility that my parents don't like me, or they don't want me, or they feel that they're alone. So what are they supposed to do? So if you remember, what we were supposed to do is the loving is 70% and the discipline is 30%. So now what we're going to speak about is as follows, right? Listen very carefully. We said like this. We're trying to go back to what we spoke about in the first shiurim, and then we're going to bring down another 3 new things, and then we're going to continue. If you remember, we said, never explain why you would give a command. Right? Remember that whenever you're showing authority, you have to come and you have to show, this is what you're doing. Why? Because I said so. Right? Or, that's the way it is. Right? That's the way it is in the house. You're not going to explain why. Why? Because once you have to explain to them, and you have to justify yourself, that's not authority. So that's not discipline. Number 2, we said, never give an immediate yes. Remember, even just pretend that you're thinking about it, and then whether it's going to be a yes or a no. Many times, you should say no, just for saying no. And they have to get accustomed to that. And if you see that they're suffering because you said no, you're going to have to learn how to say no more. Because that means that you have to realize that they have to understand what is a no, that don't make deals. If you do this, so then I'm going to do that, or the ifs and buts. There's no deals, right? Only if you're going to do it. So you know what? If you do that, it's going to happen. So now, how are you going to practice, right, the authority? So if you remember, we already mentioned the way that you're supposed to do it is that you're supposed to practice it without emotion. So you're going to be calm, with a strong posture, and you're going to come and you're going to give demands, but very clear. You remember we said every single day, 3 times a day, pick up your shoes, right? Put away your school bag, do your homework, whatever. Very clear, short, concise, without any emotions, but it's a rule. You're giving a command. They have to follow suit, right? And you're getting them accustomed to following suit. What happens if they're not going to listen to you? So if you remember, we spoke about in the past, right, which is the standing command, what is standing command? It means, right, that right now you're going to come and you have to have time and you have to be very, very calm. Now, the reason why we said you have to be calm is because you have to still show love. Remember that authority does not mean that I'm a tyrant. Authority does not mean that I'm going to come and I'm going to control them. It's not for you. It's for them. You want to give them a gift. You want them to grow up, right, healthy. How do you do that? So the only way to do that is going to be that you're going to show them the love, but you're going to give them authority. Authority gives love because they see that there's somebody there that's protecting them. So how do you do that? You're going to come and you're going to tell them, listen, right, can you go pick up the shoes? They're not going to listen to you.
We
right?
have to say please.
No. You do not have to say please.
Yes!
Some people
I love
say even it's better not to say please, but you could say please. The reason why you could say please is doesn't mean that you don't have to have manners, but it's a command. The command has to be that it's not that they have a choice of whether to do it or not. They have to do it. So for example, you're going to come and you're going to tell them, pick up your shoes. They didn't listen to you. You wait there, silence. Remember we said you're singing Shila Ma'alot, you're doing whatever it is, 20 seconds, a minute and a half. You're just waiting, silently there. What happens is you're going to be waiting, and then you're going to do it again. You're going to tell them, by the way, I asked you to do this. Okay, fine. They still didn't do it. You're just watching them. Did you hear what I told you to do? Right? I'm still waiting for you. At the end, even if they don't do it, what are you going to say? I'm very disappointed. It's not acceptable that you don't listen to your father or to your mother, whichever it is.
My husband does.
And then you just walk away. Now, why is that important? The reason why is very, very simple. The reason why is because it's the cognitive dissonance, which means that inside your brain, they feel bad. They're going to come and scream at you. Why are you looking at me? Right? Why don't you go away? Or just go away. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they feel uncomfortable. They know that they're supposed to listen to you. Now, they're not listening to you. So now they feel bad. So you're just watching them. Right? One second. You're just watching them. And by watching them, you're making them feel bad. And that's exactly what you want. You want them to cave. And you want them to, right, to actually listen to you. So therefore what's going to happen is that it's going to actually fall in. That's what you're supposed to be doing for these times. Now, there's going to be another 2 things, right? Just give me 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes because I want to just try to finish up and then we can have all the questions you want, right? There's going to be 2 different types of children, right, which are actually going to be, we're going to say it. It's going to be 2 different types. One of them is going to be children that they do not have any time lapse, which means they don't understand time. So what does that mean? They don't understand time. It's time blindness. So for example, you tell them you have to be ready at 6 o'clock. They're never going to be ready at 6 o'clock. They're going to be ready at 6 a.m. So what do you have to do with those type of children? What you have to do is you have to start getting them used to time. So you're going to tell them it's in 15 minutes, right? Every 15 minutes. By the way, it's 5:15. Remember at 6 o'clock you're going to bed. It's 5:30. By the way, remember that at 6 o'clock you're going to bed. It's 5:45.
It's stressful, no?
Why is that stressful? You're reminding them about time in order for them to understand that there has to be order. So what you're trying to do is that, again, we're only talking about children that have this problem. If they don't have the problem, you don't have to do that, obviously. There's another problem that some children have, which is basically called sequence overload. It's too complicated. You tell them to go take a shower. It's too complicated for them. Why? They have to get their pajamas, get their thing, put away their clothing, So what do you do? Step by step. Break it up. So you tell them, by the way, can you bring me a new pajama that you're going to wear tonight? They come, they bring it. By the way, can you do this? Okay, fine. Now that you already have it, you split it up. Now you tell them, okay, fine. Here it is. Here's the clothing. Here's this. Go take a shower.
But there's
Why?
also children that get very overwhelmed when you ask them to do many things.
No. That's what I just said. This is for children that have the problem of sequence overload, which means it's too complicated for them, so then you split it up. The same with the time. If you have a child that he knows time is time, you're not going to tell him it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. You're not going to do that.
No.
Obviously, we're talking about the certain type of children.
Hear what I said.
Sorry. Yeah.
There's children that get overloaded by you asking them to do too many things at once.
You're right. No, you do it. You split it up.
So
You tell them one at a time. You tell them, can you please bring me this? They bring it to you. If you're going to tell them to set the table, and they are one of these children that have that problem, I'm not going to tell them set the table. I'm going to tell them, can you do me a favor, right? No, I just made a mistake. Not can you do me a favor? Bring me the plates. He brings you the plates. Set up the plates. Okay, bring me the cutlery. He comes one step at a time. Why? Because it's too much. Set the table. There are too many things going on. I don't even know where to start. So for those children, again, we're talking about a specific type of children. For those children, split it up. You have to know your child. It could be one child you have this problem. One child maybe you have the time problem. Another, or you don't have either or. But I have to give you what you're supposed to do. So this is what you're supposed to do with those children. Now, you obviously have to come and you have to give responsibility. How do you give responsibility? So whenever you're going to do the responsibility, what you're going to do is that you're going to stop. Part of the authority is you want them to start getting responsibility in the house. So you tell them, your job is to clean the dishes on Friday night. Your job is to do this. Your job is to do that. Then you're going to get a little bit more complicated. Go buy eggs and give it back to the neighbor. Go do this, and then you're going to do something else. You're always trying to add on responsibility because that's part of the authority. Part of the authority is, first of all, you're making them responsible, but it's also that you're putting your authority into the house, and that's what you're supposed to be doing.
You didn't want?
Which one?
You didn't want?
Again, like everything else. You give them the command, you wait, you tell them, I'm waiting for you to do that. If they didn't do it at the end, fine. You just say, I'm very disappointed that you didn't do it. It's not acceptable. You continue as if nothing happened. Right? The last thing, 1 second. Sorry, I apologize, but let me finish, because if not, we're not going to finish. The last thing is there's going to be 3 dodges. Dodges means like this. Right now, I need to get something done. Right? Just like right now. I stopped everyone's questions. I apologize, but I have to get it done. So what am I going to do? There's 3 dodges. Dodges means that it's not lechatchila, it's b'diavad, but I have to get something done. How am I going to get it done? So for example, you've got 2 kids fighting. So I'm going to come and I'm going to stop. Go to the other room. And now you're going to start waiting 2 minutes. He's beating him up. What are you going to start now? Go to the other room. Yeah, you have to take the... So the first thing that you have to do is, without anything in your mouth, just physical move. So for example, you've got 2 children which are fighting. If they're not going to start listening now, and you're not going to start like a whole training session now, what you just do is take one of them, take them somewhere else. Don't say anything. No blowing up, no getting angry, no nothing. Pick them up, move them somewhere else. Move them out of the problem. Why? Because now that you move them out of the problem, what happens is, that's it. You're done with it. You're not going to come and start a whole thing with the children or power struggles and fighting. There's no fighting. Remember, we do not want to fight with our children. We never want to argue with them. This is a rule, and that's it. They either listen or they're not going to listen. And then again, you're very disappointed with them. But there's never a power struggle. But you're just going to ignore them. You're just going to continue. The second one is a prize without command. So you spoke about beforehand, can I give them a prize? Let's say right now it's Erev Pesach, and we're going crazy, and we need something to be done. Now again, you don't have the time to come and start doing that, do this, and then you're going to wait another 20 minutes, and then, you don't have the time to do that. What you're able to do is, whoever is going to come and do this, here's $5, they could go to the grocery store or whatever it is, and buy whatever they want. What you just did was, so that's not really bribery, because you didn't actually give them, if you do this, you're going to get that. What you just did was, you left it up in the air as an option. Again, this is not the best of what to do, but if you need something done, instead of Pesach, and you need something done, it could be Erev Pesach, it could be Erev Shabbat, it could be whenever it is, you are putting it out that whoever wants is able to do it. You're going to find that child that beforehand did not want to do it, they're going to be flying like a gazelle in order to run to get it, in order to run to the grocery store and get whatever they want. Now again, you didn't tell him to do it, but you're not bribing him. You're just saying whoever wants, here it is. The last one, which we're going to speak about, is a unified parental front. This is very, very important with also Shalom Bayit, but also to do with Chinuch, when you have both parents standing in front of the child, telling them, you are going to school. Beforehand, he was jumping up and down, he doesn't want to go to school. Both parents look him in the eye. Remember, all these things, you're always looking in the child's eyes, you're getting their eye contact, and you're both telling them the same front, you are doing this. All of a sudden, it does miracles. And when it does miracles, you don't even realize what it does. So therefore, it's very, very important that both parents are going to be, obviously, on the same page. Obviously, there was a lot of different things that we mentioned tonight,